welcome back to Business Today. The discussion started off from the CBK appointment all the way to the state of the economy. And Dr. Kabata David is here with me. Dr. Now I'm looking at 2024, a lot of our debt is maturing, which is quite a concern. And when we think about debt, most of the time is external debt. Yeah, how it impacts. How often do we think about the local debt? That almost 50%, 4 point something trillion shillings that is owed locally. Is it something that also we should pay attention to?
In fact, the biggest problem right now is the local debt. It is not even the external per se. Because if you look at how much the government is paying for the local debt, it is about three times whatever they are paying for the external debt right now. So the problem is the local debt right now, and actually that is what is making the government to run helter-skelter. Why? Because it is short-term debts, treasury bills, treasury 91, 182 days, 1 year treasury bonds. So those ones have to be paid, and the other problem with it is that it also does what we call crowding off the private sector. Because when you have a situation where the banks are able to lend to the government at a higher interest rate, for me as a banker, I would actually lend more to the government than the common mwananchi, because save for now, where we are also seeing the government being a risky borrower, actually. The government has always been a very good borrower for the banks, basically because defaulting is very difficult for the bank, for the government when you compare with the common mwananchi. And so what happens is that the institution, most of these institutions of finance will go to lend to the government more than the bank. And with that, then the private sector is also gets very literal, especially when it comes to taxation. And you see when it comes to the money. And you see the private sector is the one that creates jobs of opportunities through investment, bigger investment and all that. And therefore, when they cannot be able to get cash, basically because the government is over borrowing in the local market, then it becomes a difficult situation. So the local, actually right now, the domestic debt is the biggest challenge that we have. And as also you have also said we have a challenge, because 2024, remember we took a Eurobond loan in 2014 that was supposed to go for 10 years. It is maturing in 2024 June, and therefore the government has to look for 200 billion to repay the loan. And that is why you saw Professor Jogona Dongo talking about taking another Eurobond to pay that one, so that we do not have a problem next year. But also remember, the situation that was the economic situation in the country in 2014 were good compared to now, and that is why the foreign investors were willing to lend to us. So the question is are those foreign investors, will they be willing to lend to us at the situation we are right now? Remember, Moody already has started downgrading us when it comes to our credit score. Mm-hmm. So are they going to be willing to lend that at the same interest rate? Because if you also remember, sometime this year or last year, the government had tried to take a Eurobond.
Yes.
But the interest rate became very high at 12%. They refused to, they actually did away with it because of the interest rate being very high. So do we see ourselves also taking a Eurobond to pay the other Eurobond next year at a higher interest rate, which will be a big challenge whoever will be there in the next 10 years? I think those are some of the things that we need to be discussing. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, Noah, we are in a big hole, especially when it comes to debt.
Yeah. And even in the budget books, there is a balance. And every budget, there is what you're spending and what you're making. And most of the focus has been, even with the finance bill, how much we are collecting, how much we are making. The spending side of it. There was talk about fiscal consolidation. There was talk about, taking our expenditures and putting it in check. And then we had the situation of salary delays happening for the public sector. I don't know, the first one in many decades, which is quite a concern. This government, the way you see it, apart from sort of trying to raise a lot of revenue and to hit those targets, on the spending bit, has it been diligent? Has it demonstrated goodwill? And what can be done to sort of manage spending?
You know, Kenya financial problem is not actually in revenue. It is in spending. Because one, we live beyond our means. I saw in your dailies today that the government, there is an increase in the payment of the government employees by 16 billion, basically because of overhiring. Because why are we increasing that, the amount of money that we need to pay for the people, for those people? It's because we have overhired, and you can see what is happening. Our CAS today are 52. We have PS, I think 51 PS. You can see the number. We have increased actually the amount of money that we need to pay to some of those people. And that is why you saw that issue coming out in your dailies. Now, it tells you the biggest problem we have in this country is spending. We actually spend even what we don't have. I've just given you an example. This year, we are not hitting the target of 2 trillion. KRA is not going to hit the target of collecting 2 trillion. But we've already increased the target from 2 trillion to 2.9 trillion. So we have increased another 900 billion. If we cannot be able to do that today, then we think that by increasing some of these taxes that you see the government trying to increase and pushing on Kenyans, that you are going to collect 900 billion more. It is impossible. So what it tells you is that the government is actually going to borrow again, the difference of between 2 trillion and 900 billion, the 2.9 trillion, which is 900 billion again, plus 3.6 billion minus 2.9, 3.6 trillion minus 2.9 trillion. There is a difference of about 700 billion that was supposed to also be borrowed. So then it means that this year alone, if we do not hit the 2.9 trillion budget, KRA does not collect 2.9 trillion, the government is going to borrow about 1.4 trillion within 1 year. Now I want you to multiply by 5 years or 4 years. That is 6 trillion within the first term of this administration, if we continue with that. So the problem is our spending. And I don't know how we are going to sit down and solve that problem of spending. One, we live within our means. Because why shouldn't the government just read a budget of 3 trillion? Because 2 trillion or 2.5 trillion, because that is what you can collect. So how are we going to deal with our spending unless we come up with with an agreement or a solution to that? We are going to come up with solutions that cannot solve any financial problem in this country.
Because when you look at the IMF interventions on some of this, I mean, you look at the Finance Bill 2023, sort of a reflection of IMF, and some of the suggestions that they're bringing with this help or conditions that do come with such help. Yeah. And they say KRA is collecting below its potentials. Yeah. That has been the argument for a very long time. Our economy is highly informal. How to tap into that? TOT was helped to turnover tax was supposed to help with that. And I mean, even the government trying to lower this band of turnover tax from 1 million to 50 to 500 to 15 million. And they justified saying, at least we get something from this net. Or is there another approach to sort of bring more people and to incentivize more people to collect to the collective basket?
You see, the problem with there is no problem of the with that turnover tax, because we have always been saying that some of these SMEs, maybe they also supposed to pay taxes, because many of us in SMEs, we don't pay taxes, MSMEs, especially the micro ones. But how do you collect that tax from those people? That is the question. One, these people do not keep any record, financial record. So when you tell them that anybody who has a turnover of 500,000 should pay the taxes, how are you going to know whether these guys hit their 500,000 and they do not keep records or not? You can see how difficult it is for those MSMEs to actually get money from those MSMEs. I've just told you that if you want to use M-Pesa, these people are just going to leave M-Pesa or Lipa na M-Pesa being paid with a mode of mobile payment system and go cash. So it is very difficult unless you try to motivate them to pay. And how do you motivate them such that they will actually be willing to pay from their own hearts? Because that is what we actually need to sit down and think about. One is to improve the condition of their working places. Is the government willing to do that? Because those are some of the things that actually can motivate me. Let me talk as a small business owner. What is going to make me pay 3%? The only thing that can make me pay that 3% is if the government can motivate me to do that by trying to improve the standard of living, the standard of where my business is. There's nothing else. So it is very difficult. For the 15 million also, I think those ones are supposed to pay the income tax after profit. So what the government has done is that it has lowered it from 50 million to 15 million. And if we do a small calculation, that means that any business that is making has a turnover about 40,000 per day actually gets into that bracket, because it's about 1.2 million per month. Per month. Any business that has a turnover of about 1.2 million per month is actually supposed now to pay the income tax of 30%. Those ones, the government can be able to get them because those are medium enterprises. And that one, I think the government, what they are going to do is to give them the new ERT or something like that. They can be able to follow. But the biggest challenge and where the money is for the government is the micro. Because 80% of the businesses in this country are micro. So if the government can come up with a way of how they can get money from them, which I don't see right now from that finance bill, then they are going to create something that can be able to help in their budget and also in their debt repayment system. But otherwise, we are just wasting time.
We're just wasting time. And as we finish up, Dr. I see our time is really running out. There was that issue of equitable approach to taxation. The current government, under their manifesto, they were saying one of the ways is, taxing wealth. I don't know how that featured in this finance bill 2023, but I know in regards to taxation of income, that suggestion, if you're making above, I think 500,000 and above, 35%, taxation rate, which is quite high. People are open to that. Is that also another avenue that, is it viable? Will it work? How many people are making 500,000 shillings and above per month?
No, it is punitive. Because you see, I want us to, maybe we can look at the different graduation of taxes. The people who are paying the lowest level taxes in this country is 10%. So when you increase for some group or some cadres of people to 35%, then you move away from whatever we call the equity, the issue of equity, and actually you overtax those people. So I think for me, the government should even lower to 25%. We see whether they can be productive for us. But allow me to say that, Noah, anytime we have a problem of debt in a country, the people who actually suffer are the poor. And we actually even increase the gap between the poor and the rich. And I'll show you why. Because the only way we can be able to pay those debts is by increasing taxes. So you increase taxes for the poor and also for the rich. But you forget that the rich have another avenue of making money from the government by lending money to the government through treasury bills and also treasury bonds, because there are the people who actually buy some of those assets from the government. So you will never see a mama boga buying treasury bills. You'll never see mtu wa mkokoteni buying treasury bill, but they will be paying taxes. But the rich will pay the taxes, but we will also lend the money to the government. So then they have an incentive. They are actually making money from that problem of the debt. So the biggest problem with accumulated debts is that it actually hits the poor more than the rich, basically because the poor will have to pay taxes and they do not have any other way in which they can make money from the issue of the debt, unlike the rich.
Yes. So the solution is find a way of incentivizing the majority who are out of the tax bracket to come in. I know the government boasts so much on the issue of input subsidy,
Yes.
because that is one of the issues, even with the challenge that we are facing between the opposition and the government, the cost of living. And we saw the previous government, using subsidies, fuel subsidies, sort of to lower that. And here I see in this new suggestion, VAT 16% on fuel. If fuel hits 200 shillings, that becomes a challenge. So what other avenues other than agriculture? We have seen the fertilizer subsidy. Can the government intervene to sort of make it a little bit easier for the Mwananchi?
It is very difficult because the minute you increase the prices of power and also petroleum products, you actually increase the price of everything in this country. Let me give you an example, and I think even Kenya Power does not know. By just increasing the prices of electricity in this country, Kenya Power has killed the last mile project. I'll tell you why. Because today, if you get the loan to you get electricity through their loan of 15,000. When they come to deduct money from your token, the amount that you get, you pay for the token, they are actually deducting half of the money. So if you buy token worth 1,000 shillings, they deduct about 500 shillings. So what remains is 500 shillings. Then graduate that with the increased price of token, you get 15 or 14 token units. So what those people are doing is that they are now going to repay the loans, because it has even become very expensive for you to be able to live without electricity through that last mile project because of the increase of the tariffs. So anytime you increase the petroleum products prices, you actually increase the inflation in this country. So whatever else you try to do outside that, it negates whatever you are doing, because everything in this country becomes expensive. So that 8% more increase in the petroleum product is actually going to kill anything else that the government wants to try and do, or the subsidies that they are talking about, because the transport cost of everything in this country increases, and therefore the common Mwananchi and the standard of living, the cost of living increases.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely. Okay, quite a concern right there. But Dr. thank you very much. Dr. David Kabata, economist. We appreciate your